I am Ruth Sapsed. I think the word shared is really important. So it means that there's a sense of everybody having agency and sharing that sense of their own importance and power in a beautiful, expanded, feminist way. I'm not thinking physical, of course, physical power is, but I mean that sense that everybody has and determine things and work together. And I think that's really fundamental and is beautiful when you talk about it, and um, something we must always, always, all be striving for. It's not easy. I set up a charity with gorgeous colleagues and people who kind of rallied around this sense of what are we going to do about children's powers and how they're being diminished in the world. I worked as a network of people to then take it to becoming a charity in 2007 called Cambridge Curiosity and Imagination. And I led that charity until just last year. And I think that charity was driven by a really fundamental kind of fear that, well, not fear, I mean, evidence that children's powers were being diminished and that children's rights to be in their world as was natural and appropriate and working with their energies and their unbelievable capacities was being eroded. And so that really charged me to kind of see the inequalities that were kind of right there on my doorstep, because the charity worked very closely with early years and primary school settings mostly. Most of the projects had a setting for children's learning at the heart of it. So I've seen into and been alongside many different ways of what is supposed to be a kind of supportive learning environment for children, and felt how diminished in many, many ways their rights are within that, and how little they're learning about what a functioning democracy could feel like. So I did that until last September, and then since September, I've been working with colleagues as part of a consortia called Fullscope, which is working with sort of charity organisations in this county to think how, if we work better together, we can support the system, the mental health system, to be more inclusive, more accessible, and more relevant to children and young people. And that feels really, really critical at this moment. It felt important 20 years ago, but I feel like children, we don't care for our children, and they have to care for the future. And what future are we going to have if we can't do better for them? I keep coming across, how do we keep hope? How do we keep hope alive? I feel like my colleagues help me keep hope alive, and I think there are wonderful people out there doing really interesting work around hope, who, when I encounter their words and when I read the work they're doing, I feel I feel that kind of energy come back. Rob Hopkins would definitely be one of them. I thought that IMI at the Citizen Square in Birmingham were absolutely wonderful. I just love that energy to challenge and question and see that a better world is possible. Children absolutely inspire me. I just find their kindness and their energy and their brilliant imaginations. They inspire me, definitely. Yeah. And that sense of being able to talk really, they're not weighted down by this cynicism that we seem to be able to bring to everything, and that kind of disillusionment, they haven't been disillusioned by the world. There's so much knowledge about how to support children and young people. The education colleagues I've come with who've really inspired me, oh God, if we gave them the education system to reimagine, oh, the kind of fear of the consequences of sharing power seem to be so acute and kind of fundamental. If we could put aside the patriarchy, it would be, it would help. It's just a complete disrespect for holding a space for different viewpoints and the interconnectedness of us all. You know, the kind of us and our planet and our world and our energies. I really having to kind of confront how well I've been inculcated into this capitalist, consumerist, individualist, you know, and it's really uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable. You feel like I feel I've been, I feel I've graduated from the school of capitalism, consumerism, and individualism, and I'm having to unravel it a lot and really look at it, and it's not very nice. We're all worried about our futures and our pensions and the value of our homes and it's so insecure that in a way you're naive not to be, but it doesn't help with this sense of if we could return to a greater sense of the commons and the a shared care for things, it would make it so different. This thing about in a democracy, we all sign up to some kind of agreed rule of law, it seems to me. There's a kind of um there's a bedrock of what we all understand to be the right way to do things, and there's a legal system that protects this. And I feel like the state of the world, Gaza in particular, the breaches of international law just make you think, well, what's the point? What is the point of having that? Because what are we supposed to be doing if the systems that we're all signing up for and investing so much energy in helping to shape and and honouring those systems. It's a bit like when, in Brexit, old Dominic Cummings was caught driving up. It's like, hang on a minute, it makes us all for mugs. What? There's one rule for 99% and then there's another rule for the 1%. That's a big fault line. Do you think the Labour Party's introduction of reducing the age of voting, I would want it to go much further than 16, but I think that is a really important step in we need to learn that our voices are important and be helped to think how we use our voices. And if that were, I mean, I would advocate for 13, I think, if not younger. But anyway, as a, why not? Why go, if we can reduce it to 16, I think we could reduce it to 13. It would be part of your educational experience. You would go and vote. You would have those debates, you would have those discussions, you would learn to think about how do you disagree agreeably or whatever that idea is. You would see all those multiple perspectives and you would get a sense of, why a vote is important. And also, I think politicians would take children's lives much more seriously because they'd be held to account by them. And at the moment, it's just so biased, isn't it? The loudest voices are the older generation. I think some of this work that goes on by activists around commons and common spaces and common land and common ownership, we need less individualism, more sharing, and more kind of moving away from just us in our cars and our homes and our, second homes and our all that nonsense. We need to share.